Hello everyone, this is our third and final video for the Progressive Era notes that you should be completing and of the Progressive Era series. So the major political party that kind of comes out of this time period is the Populist Party, and they were formed in 1891 to represent the farmers that are in the industrial workers that are struggling so much during this time period. For the industrial workers, they really fight to get 8-hour work days, a government-owned railroad to regulate those prices for farmers. They also work on a graduated income tax, which is the more you get paid, the more you're taxed. The less you get paid, the less you pay of taxes. They elect several U.S. senators. They work on immigration restrictions, limiting how many immigrants can come into the country and what they can do. They also work on an Australian ballot, which is the way we vote today. We vote in secret. It's an anonymous vote. People don't know how we vote for political offices. Prior to this time period, people could figure out who you voted for. They also help farmers get loans and storage loans for their crops when they have an overflow. Sorry about that. Okay, Georgia had probably one of the best known populists, and that was Tom Watson. And he was a congressman, and he worked on a bill that today, revolutionized mail delivery at the time, which was the Rural Free Delivery Bill, which was to deliver mail free to rural homes because remember, Georgia at this time is still really agricultural, still very rural, except in, like Atlanta and Savannah. Most of Georgia still had a lot of rural areas, and those people would have to come into town to the post office and get their mail. Well, with this bill that Watson introduces, no longer is that something that they have to do. He later runs as vice president in 1896, but he does not win that election. Now, the progressive movement was, even though the Bourbons were bad guys, we did talk about they had some successes. Well, the progressive movement in some ways is very similar to some of the things that the Bourbons did. They wanted to keep Georgia a one-party state, still, wanted to have just that one major political party. They do attempt to diversify the economy, to create more industry, because Georgia at this time is still just a cotton state. That's their major crop. We still aren't having a lot of industry. Even though some has come in, we need more to diversify the economy. So if there's a bad cotton crop, the state can still survive economically. And we talked about with the Feltons that they began to legislate moral behavior, prohibition, getting rid of alcohol. They also work on improving education and helping those in need. Now, so the progressives are still very much like the Bourbons. They support disenfranchisement, which is limiting black rights, especially their voting rights, and also the rights of poor whites to vote. They pass laws that apply to everyone but serve to make it harder for blacks and poor whites to vote. Poll taxes, requiring you to pay a tax or a fee in order to be able to vote, in addition to your property tax. So you've paid your property tax, you should be able to go and vote, but now when you get to the poll, when you get to the voting booth, you've got to pay an additional tax, which today is completely illegal and really should have been at that time, but they're creating these laws and it took a long time to get them outlawed. So in 1900, they also have primaries, which narrows down the candidates to just the one candidate from a political party, and these were only open to whites. In 1906, Hoke Smith urges Georgia to pass a constitutional amendment requiring a literacy test to vote. So if you couldn't read and write, you couldn't take the test, and then you couldn't vote. So, and the literacy test would not apply to those that had at least 40 acres of land. And This was generally for illiterate whites. And then there's an additional clause that Hoke Smith wanted to create, which was called the grandfather clause, which if your grandfather was a slave then and he couldn't vote, then that means you couldn't vote. So it was going to take, that couple generations of people to get away from being able to vote. All of these disenfranchisement meaning ways to stop people from being able to vote, they are all illegal today and cannot go on today. If they happen today, it's major political issues if they occur. The other way for these rural areas of the state to make sure their political candidates won elections was through the county unit system. And so they would assign a number of votes by county, no matter the population difference. So today, like Fulton County, we have a lot of people living in Fulton County. We get a lot of votes because everything is distributed based on population. Well, rural counties, there were 105 of those at the time, they would get one county unit vote. The urban areas would get 3 units, and there were only 6 urban counties at the time. And then the mid-sized town counties would get 2 county unit votes, and there were 26 of those. So even if all of the town counties, so 26 of those times 2, so that's 52, plus the 18 urban county votes, that would not be enough to outweigh all those rural county votes. Okay, it would not be enough because it was 18 plus 52, we've got 70 votes. It's not enough. They can't do it. So rural counties control Georgia elections, minimizing the impact of the growing urban centers, particularly Atlanta. And here's a picture of Atlanta during this time period. You see how industrial it is and how urban it is, and it's just a growing metropolis, becoming the city that we know it today. So it was just a bad system, and eventually it is also outlawed. That is the end of our video series. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me messages via Edmodo, ask me in class, but the note sheets, the due date, pay attention to that on Edmodo, and those are expected to be turned in class, and I will check off that you've done them and then give them back to you so you can use them for review.